65. So for me, this is the golden anniversary of my relationship with Star Trek. We have lived long and prospered. And Star Trek has given us so many wonderful, wonderful gifts. We've lived much longer than we ever expected to live because, you know, we were canceled after 3 seasons on TV. I mean, we discovered that despite the fact that at the beginning of each episode, we announced that we were boldly going on a 5-year mission, our adversaries weren't the Klingons. The real adversaries were the NBC programming executives. They aborted our 5-year mission in 3. But we showed them, didn't we, Star Trek fans? Because here we are, the 29th year of Star Trek, and next year we're going to show them that we are going to continue to live long and prosper. And part of that prosperity has been all of you, the fans, the undying support that you've given us all through my 50 years with Star Trek. And so we're deeply appreciative of that. It is your faith in Star Trek, your undying support, and also the fact that you multiplied yourselves like triples with children and grandchildren. And fandom has grown and grown. But despite the longevity that we've had, and the gift that Star Trek has given me personally, of my work colleagues who have become very dear, beloved friends of mine. But when you've been together for 50 years, the thing about nature is that you lose many of them. And this year we lost our conscience, Leonard Nimoy, passed in February. And he is a real loss in the Star Trek family. Yes, indeed, because he was more than a very talented actor. He was an extraordinarily decent human being. It's because of Leonard and his principles that Nichelle and I were included in the animated versions of Star Trek. Because when they cast the voices for the animated version, they claimed that they had a limited budget. So they hired Bill Shatner to do Captain Kirk, Leonard Nimoy to do Mr. Spock, Majel Barrett to play Nurse Chapel and all the female voices, and Jimmy Doohan to do Scotty and all the male voices. And when Leonard found out about that, he said, "This is not Star Trek then." Because what Star Trek was about was the diversity of this planet coming together and working in concert as a team on the Enterprise. And it is that diversity that gave Star Trek its strength. And the two people that most personify that diversity on Star Trek are Nichelle Nichols as Uhura and George Takei as Sulu. And if they're not going to be with this show, then I'm not going to be with this show. It was an extraordinary stand. Because he was willing to give up his job for 2 other actors. The producers of the animated version found the money for 2 more voices, Nichelle and me. We owe the fact that we were a part of the Star Trek family in the animated version to Leonard Nimoy's gutsy, principled stand. And I will always remember Leonard for that stance that he took. But beyond that, he was a beloved friend and a very supportive friend. When I did Equus in Los Angeles, I knew I was playing a part that Leonard played on the big stage of Broadway. In the Broadway production, Leonard played the part of the psychiatrist. Some of you may have seen Leonard in that role. How many of you saw Leonard as Dr. Dysart in Equus? I see one hand waving there. Is that the only hand? Well, he was brilliant, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. And when I was doing it in a mid-sized theater in Los Angeles, I wasn't expecting Leonard. But one night, the ushers came rushing backstage to the dressing room, and they said to me, "Leonard Nimoy's in the house." And suddenly, it was a whole different performance for me. I was nervous. Leonard Nimoy, who did it brilliantly on Broadway, was in the house. And I gave it my very best performance, and waiting to see if Leonard would come backstage to tell me how he did. Because if he didn't come back, that means he wasn't pleased. But sure enough, Leonard did come back. And when he walked into my dressing room smiling, I said, "Well, Leonard, how'd I do? What'd you think?" And Leonard smiled, that Leonard Nimoy smile, and he said, "You were better." Now that's preposterous. Leonard Nimoy, who was brilliant and got great reviews on Broadway, but that's the kind of guy he was. He was very supportive, he was very modest, and he was very praising of his colleagues. And when I did when I did Allegiance, which is my legacy project, one very near and dear to me. And some of you fans out there may have a fan that makes me your fan. You can, with my fan adoration, you can cool yourself down. There it is, right there. All those with a fan, wave it so that I can say, "Oh, what a wonderful, sparkling audience."